talk at lunch because she lives in Dunmow and my business was near Dunmow, so we had a lot of mutual people we knew and places we knew. But nevertheless, she's going to tell you about her journey, which she called a privilege. So I'll just leave you to listen to June there.
I just thought it seemed like a good idea while we're waiting for the next course. Thank you very much for inviting me. I think it's because I did go to Wharton Church in Upminster in a wheel to give a talk, so obviously wheels within wheels, and here I am now. Why am I here? My incredible journey was to the Ukraine. Has anyone heard of British Aid for Deprived Children? George Mills?
Yes.
Yes, right. George started going out to Eastern Europe with a lady called Pauline Craven, and then he was asked to go and have a look at the Ukraine because, can anybody tell me what's significant?
Chernobyl.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's the whole reason for all of this. We had humanitarian aid first, we had British Aid, which was George Mills, and he is still involved to a degree, but he has not done the convoys now since 2000. Felstead Aid for Deprived Children, UK Aid, was formed in 2003, and it's all to do with Chernobyl, and it's quite frightening, isn't it, when you look at the date, 1986 when Chernobyl went up. And children and young people will be affected for hundreds of years to come. It's quite frightening. Me, how do I get involved? Well, you can all see I am wearing a badge. Do come in, no problem. I'm a member of In a Wheel, okay? I was a member of Dunmow In a Wheel, and I became what they call in a Wheel Overseas Service Organiser, and I did that job for about 7 years, okay? And during that time I used to organise overseas evenings, and one of them I decided would be on the Ukraine, because I was the person collecting all these goods and all this kind of thing. Do come in, it's okay.
Here I am.
Oh yeah, fine. And I just happened to say, oh, it'd be great, I really would like to go and see where all the things are going that I collect. And they said, oh, not a problem, June. And then I thought, oh, what have I done? Because I thought I was going to go out as a co-driver on the convoys, but about 2 weeks before I was actually going, they said, that's the van you're driving, by the way, June. And I thought, with a trailer, so a 3-ton van with a 2-ton trailer on the back, and I was to drive this from Braintree and Essex right out to the Ukraine. Okay, that's really a bit about how it started. It was a bit of an emotional roller coaster for me because, sadly, and it turns out that Ray and my husband were at the same police station at Dagenham East, because I lived in Romford for 30 years. I taught in Upminster, so this is like coming home really, coming down here again. But 18 months after we moved up to Great Dunmow, after Phil had retired, he had a major stroke. He was in a wheelchair for a year, he couldn't drive, he couldn't walk. And here was me thinking, I'm going to leave him for the first time and I'm going to drive all these miles. Apparently I'm told I'm quite an organised person. So there were lists on every kitchen cupboard, there were lists on the tables, everywhere. So that I knew where he should be, what he should be eating, and who was going to give it to him, because I couldn't have gone otherwise. I was also very apprehensive about, will I actually be safe and will I come back? And what I did, I wrote a letter for Phil, my son and my daughter. They've never seen them, but I put them in the drawer just in case I didn't come back. As I said, I didn't know I was going to do this driving until 2 weeks before, but it took me one day to get my confidence, and then I actually did it. So I'll stop there. I'll have my pie. No, I'll start again. Okay. But my journey really starts with people like you. I know I'm going to see David later and collect some big black sacks that are going in my car, because it's you that give us the aid, and that can be anything. I always say I'll accept anything but blows, and I'll do the sorting. So my house always looks like it's Christmas, because I can come in and there'll be parcels in the porch, or it's wonderful. I never know what I'm going to find. So we collect all this aid that you give us. It goes to a warehouse, where it's an old farm building that the farmer gives us free. Everything has to be sorted, packed in boxes. It has to be labelled, various categories, and it has to be weighed, right? And why that has to happen is because we have to have very strict customs sheets, okay? And when we set off, we have to have these all. So when we do the packing of the vans and the trailers, it's an absolute art, I can tell you, because boxes are all sizes, shapes, weights, and we use toilet rolls and all sorts of things to fill in the gaps, packaged of course. So that's what happens. So that happens before. On day one, I started off from Braintree at 4:30 in the morning. And our first port of call was Ramsgate, because we had to go and get some more papers to make sure that we had them all. We then drove to Dover and we got the ferry. We were then using Sea France, and they used to give us a good deal. Well, of course, they went out of business, so we have to keep negotiating good deals. And then that was day one. We went through France, through Belgium, through Holland, and into Germany. And I just want to show you two things that were important. This is always on the front of the van. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. We'll take no notice of it. And I want to show you this little fella. There is a book there of photographs if you want to see them. I don't know if you can see, he's holding a little Bible. Have you been into printing cards and seen all these from me to you? These bears, the cards, everything else. Don't ask me how, but the people who make these got in touch with us and said, can we give you all our out-of-stock bears or our old stock? Or yes, that'd be lovely. We get them by the crate load. We are not allowed to sell them. We can give them away, and we take boxfuls out to the children in Birmingham. What we are allowed to do is do tombolas with them, which seems a bit weird to me because that's a form of selling, but never mind, we do it. And one day at the warehouse, I was packing, and I was doing teddies, and he fell out onto the floor. And Alan said to me, it was just before I went, and he said, I think he should go with you. So I took him home, and I said to my little grandson, who was about 9 at the time, what shall I call him? And he said, I think he should be Holy Bear, Gran. So Holy Bear he is. And he sat, you'll see him, he sat on the dashboard in the van, and he went all the way to the Ukraine and all the way back with me. He's been all over the place. So he's very special. We also have a tracking device on our vans, which is being sponsored. And you can actually follow us when we're on our journeys. You can follow us on the computer. And my husband said, well, that was brilliant. He said, I could see where the vans were at any given time. He said, I couldn't guarantee she was in it, but at least I knew where the vans were. And we also had CBs, because there were 2 vans and 2 trailers. And we were in the lead van, and we could quickly tell them behind. We had all sorts of signals about who might be up ahead or slow down or whatever. So that was quite interesting. We always stayed in bed and breakfast places en route, and that was all paid for by us volunteers. We do not take any money whatsoever out of self-sedation for our children. I had some very, very generous friends and family And before I went, I raised £600 by not having presents, but I had a grand's fund, they called it, and coffee mornings and that kind of thing. So I was able to raise £600 towards the trip. The next day we're up, we had breakfast, and we were on the road at 6:30 that morning. German roads, they were pretty good indeed. We got to the Polish border at about 11:45 that morning, and what struck me at the Polish border was the guards were absolutely immaculately dressed. You know that lovely, it's like an Air Force group really, and they wear those hats that sort of go up at that angle. They were fantastic. Everywhere we went, we had a problem at the borders. Because they'd say, can we have the papers? So you give them the papers. Yeah, but where are the papers for the trailer? They're there. No. It's the wrong number. No, in England we have the same number plate on our trailer as we do our main vehicle. Not there. And every time, and we've been going for, well, all this time, it's still, they have to ask. And they open the vans and they look and they go, ooh, and shut it quickly. They don't disturb it at all. When we got over the border, we had to change money. We had to have sloshies there. And you can see them. I've got examples of money. And what amazed me was, you have to go to a cantor, which is a bank, to get your money. But that could be a little garden shed in someone's garden, just as you're driving along. Absolutely amazing. And that's because, although they're in Europe, they don't use the euro. And the big thing on the bottom of this, it says, I drove today. And I actually got my courage and I drove. Poland is, I don't know if any of you have been there, it's definitely a country of contrasts, but it was lovely. So we stayed overnight in Poland, and the next day we're off again very, very early, 7:30 I think we were on the road this day. These are all towns in Poland. I don't think I'd realised how big Poland was. And I think I've got something let me show you. Yeah, if I could just show you this briefly. We're coming down through Poland, and the place we want to get to is Chernihiv. You might see it on a map as Chernigov. Okay? Belarus, and this is Chernobyl. So you would say, well, wouldn't it make sense to drive straight across? But no, it's not such a good idea. So we come down through Poland, we get to the border at Chelm, we drive through Ukraine. There is still a huge no-go area around Chernobyl. And then we go up. And why do we do that? When Chernobyl went off, the wind was blowing directly into Belarus. That's why there still is lots and lots of problems in Belarus. But unfortunately, the wind changed very quickly and it went there. And that's why Chernihiv is also got devastation as well, and why there are so many children in the Ukraine who are affected and still are. So, our day 3, we get to the border at the Ukraine. Well, that was quite an experience, to say the least. I've been asked, what were the roads like? Did they deteriorate as you went along? Well, yes and no. My journey was in October 2010, and there was detours everywhere on these roads. Can you guess why? Millions and millions of pounds being poured into the roads because it was about to be European football, which was being hosted by Poland and Ukraine. And there was roadworks going on everywhere. The problem is, that you would just see detour, off you go, and then if there's no other signs. We'd be on unmade roads, we'd end up near fields or almost in them. It was quite hair-raising. One of them lasted for 2 hours. We had a 2-hour detour once. Once we got to this village, and Alan, my co-driver, said, June, just take that map and go and ask that lady in the garden who's washing her dishes, because that's where they normally do. Are we on the right road? And I think we were looking for Chow. And I said, pardon? I don't speak the language. You'll manage, he said. So off I went. And they do wash their dishes in the garden, and I was surrounded by ducks, geese, dogs, chickens, you name it. I walked through them thinking, well, they could attack me, but never mind. And I'm trying to show her this map and say, am I on the right? Eventually she went, yeah. So off we went, and we did. 2 hours later, we're back on the road. So it was fine, but there were real contrasts. I saw, particularly in Poland, lots of strip farming still. I actually saw an old couple. She had the yoke on here, the plough behind her, and her husband behind the plough. She is pulling the plough while he's doing the furrows. And then I go 20 miles down the road, and there's this huge tractor business. And you try and marry that up. So yeah, lots of interesting things. As I said, the border of Ukraine was a completely different matter. Completely different matter. We were ushered in. The border guards were very nice, but not nearly as smart as the Polish ones. We were told, park the vehicles, give us the books, and that's it. And I think we went into 8 different places. And they're all looking, they're all signing exactly the same, they're all giving you the same information. It was quite a nightmare, I'll tell you. It was quite amazing. We eventually got out of there, and I can't say I was sorry. I was absolutely desperate to get to the loo, but when I saw them, I thought, no way, no way. There were hundreds and hundreds of lorries in that place. One interesting story, when we were about an hour and a half away from the border, Alan said, can you see all these rubbish bins on the road? And I said, yeah, what are they for? He said, that's the queue we could be in. Apparently those rubbish bins are there because you can be there for hours, and that's what, you have a snack or something and you put your rubbish out and you're gone. Fortunately, we didn't have any of that. We eventually got through the border, and Poland and Germany were 1 hour ahead. Ukraine is now 2 hours ahead, and it was just early evening when we got to the Ukraine, and I thought, I can't believe it, I'm actually here. I didn't realise how far I still had to go. And we drove not very far into the Ukraine, and we pulled into this place. Well, I thought I'd been transported to fairyland. It was all wooden chalets, fairy lights. They were all set round a lake, and I thought, oh my word, how much am I going to have to pay here? How much do you think my bed and breakfast was in equivalent? £20. It was an absolutely wonderful place, but I couldn't sleep at all that night. And what I did do, the whole of my trip, I wrote a diary every day. It's always been my intention to write a book, but I haven't got that far. But it was fantastic being there. No English at all, and my Ukrainian is unhurt in France. But it was lovely. And then we're up the next day, and we have to drive, you saw the map, all the way through Ukraine. Kiev, which is the capital, is absolutely beautiful. Lovely, lovely buildings, beautiful churches, bridges. And we have to find our way to Chernihiv. Just out of interest, that's how they write it. And I have got a copy there. I got one of them in the centre to write me a copy of the alphabet. Well, that's amazing. When in Ukraine, every region has like we have, you know, little village signs or county signs. Every region has there. And the one for Chernihiv, it is enormous. It must be, there is a picture in my book, there must be 20, 30, 40 feet tall at least. And there's beautiful gardens and two little huts. And what they'd like you to do is actually stop, take photographs obviously, and have some drink. And apparently those people who fly out to Ukraine get to stop there and they have champagne and chocolates. And I said, sorry fellas, the only thing I've got is the chocolates. Because one thing I did do when I went, it was suggested that I take some little bags of sweets. Because going along, we might see children. Now, there is no way you would do this in England, no way whatsoever. But on one of my detours through one of these villages, I saw two little boys and I said to Alan, oh, can we stop? Can I give them some sweets? So I went in, got my Quality Street box and my little bags, gave the boys in the great big grins, and don't forget we've got our Red Cross up there. And Alan was laughing and I couldn't understand why until I turned round. I was surrounded by children. We'd stopped outside a school. So that, you know, those are the kind of things that happened on our way. We arrived at Chernihiv, which was our destination. Why were we going there? Because I have got some booklets here for you. The Revival Centre is where we were going. The Revival Centre is run by Dr. P. I can't say his name properly, so I call him Dr. P as everybody else does. His wife is the paediatrician there, and it is a centre of excellence. They have every physio, every therapist you could even think of there. Children come on a daily basis, they come on a weekly basis, they come on a monthly basis, a 3-month, 6 months. And when that centre was opened, yes, the Ukraine government provided the building. It had no doors, no windows, and British Aid and Felsted Aid have actually built that place up. Thanks to people like you. And when I was just leaving, the bulldozers were coming in to build another wing, and in fact that is up and running now. And I could be cynical at this point and say the Ukrainian government suddenly have realised what kudos this centre has and are getting a bit more involved. They're also getting a bit more strict with us about what we can and what we can't take and how we take it. But I'm sure we'll work through it if it's meant to be. As I said, the centre is just something else. It's special. We stayed there, and over here there are some examples of things the children have made. Right? These are all made by the children. Pictures made out of buttons. I've never seen such things. On the Wednesday, they always do a show while we're there, and it was autumn, and this is what they made for me, and I treasure it, and I wrap it up in cotton wool because I don't want it broken. This is my caterpillar. I'm also apparently known as the chicken lady to the children out there, because I and an army of friends knit these chickens, which are finger puppets, but they also hold a Cadbury's egg. And for the last 3-4 years, 250 to 350 of these have gone out every Easter for all the children. So that's pretty special. I must tell you about this, I'm sure you'll be interested in this. Dr. P took us to his own home on the Saturday to relax. And this says Samagon, which is vodka. And it's made from grapes. I didn't know vodka could be made from grapes. From his own house. Okay. One of the traditions, and I think it's more towards Dr. P and Dr. Natalia and the centre, but when we were eating, you would always have about 3 glasses on the table, wine, water, and a shot glass. And there was always a bottle of Flammagol. And all through the meal, we would have toasts. And it was a toast to the ladies, and that would be done by one of the gentlemen. You just get your finger pointed at you. And twice I think I had to do it for the men, which I found really hard. Well, no, I didn't really. We do it for friends, but of course the most important toast is the children. And that happens at all the meals that we have with them. Special. I feel very privileged that Dr. P has actually been over here and he has stayed with my son, where he lives up in Essex, and that was great. We did, and he did bring one of the translators with him, because we always had a translator with us wherever we went, because that was really important. We visited families who live in the locality. You won't find many photographs, and that was out of respect. Some of the living conditions we just don't know. We think there might be poverty here, but we don't know poverty really. And yet, they were so proud, they were so resilient, and some of the young people that I went to visit one, Igor. He is now about 26, I think. His legs are completely underneath him. All he can do is he can sit but. And all he does all day, because he can't go to the centre anymore, and there's nothing else they can do for him, he just sits looking out of a window. And I now know that his mum has cancer, and I just think, well, what will happen to him? I went to visit another family who lived in a fantastic flat, and his dad was actually working at Chernobyl when it went off, and his mum was pregnant with him. And sadly, he was affected as an unborn baby. He has a younger brother who's absolutely perfect, no problems at all. But his dad is still working at Chernobyl in order to get the money to treat his son. He has to go to Kiev every 2 or 3 weeks to have an injection because the pressure in his brain is forcing his eyes to come forward. I went to another tenement kind of building, you would call it, I think, and it seemed very dark and dingy. There were 7 families sharing one floor. They shared the kitchen, they shared the bathroom, and they have one room for each family. And they were just amazing people, you know. And although the aid that we take goes to the centre, these people are also helped because Dr. Natalia goes round and visits them. So that was my time at the centre. We had to repeat our journey all the way back with empty vehicles by this time. When we get there, all the boxes and everything have to be unloaded, and they go into a pound. You see photographs where they've wired it up. And Dr. P is not allowed to give it out to anybody until the customs say so. And they are getting more strict on that. But, you know, we have made a difference. You have all made a difference to so many people's lives. Not just the children, but the parents as well. Because it is very, very tough on them. Very tough. So I continued my journey back, all the way back, same way. That's telling you a bit about the centre. Well, that's just my telephone number if anyone wants to get in touch with me. Say, June, I've got a black sack. Would you like to come and collect it? What about the future? We still need aid. I've got shopping lists I can help you with. We desperately need money because we have to pay to the vans. One lovely story is that the London Rotary District have actually bought us a new van, which is absolutely superb. We need more volunteers, lots of volunteers. This July concert, I was actually there last night. We have got 2 Ukrainian accordionists over at the moment. I'd never heard of a classical accordionist till 3 years ago. Well, these men make these accordions dance. You'd think you were listening to an orchestra. They're fantastic. That's what's happening at the moment. People sometimes say to me, yeah, but what about people in our country? They need help. As a charity, we actually help the Ormiston Trust, and we provide Christmas parcels for children whose family are in Chelmsford Prison. So we provide that at Christmas. So please continue to think of us, pray for us, and just go on supporting us. Thank you.
So do you fellow got any questions? Ron?
June,
Yeah, Ron?
you mentioned that Kiev was beautiful and
Yeah.
good, but they had such enormous battles around that area. Was it not destroyed then?
But it's all rebuilt.
In the same style?
Beautiful,
Yeah, like Serbia.
yes, yes.
Oh, right.
Beautiful.
Yes, Bob?
Until a few years ago, the Baptist Church in Upminster would have a group of children from that area
Yes.
coming for holidays. I haven't
Yes.
seen any of them recently. Has that stopped?
Still, no, it still happens, but they tend to come from Belarus.
Right.
I'm now in the, I was going to say Rotary Club, the Inner Wheel Club of Bishop Stortford, because my club in Dunwell closed. And every year we entertain a group of children from Belarus, and they were here about 3 weeks ago, I think. And so yes, it is still happening. But again, there are problems with that, because the government now are saying that all these visas that they need, that we have to pay for them. And it's, I mean, it's just thousands of pounds. And you know, that causes a problem. But we did still do it this year, and we are planning to do it next year.
Good.
And the trip, the latest trip came back on Saturday from Ukraine, and the next one is going out in October. We do 3 a year.
Are unborn babies still being born?
Yes.
Is there trouble?
We now have a link with the Anglia-Ruskin University in Chelmsford and Dr. Helena out in Ukraine, and there is a genetic project they're working on together, because they are trying to work out, it can jump a generation.
Yeah.
You know, like the boy I told you whose dad was working there, his brother is fine. His brother could get married, their children could be affected. And they're trying to find out why this is, you know, how, what can we do? So yes, it's a very long, ongoing project. So thank you for your time.
Follow you've had speakers over the years with a feeling for what they're supposed to talk about, respect of what they're doing, and a great insight to what they're about. But I think the passion has been shown this afternoon. The speech is moving, and I'd like Yakat to give thanks for what he's done.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. President. June, thank you for coming this afternoon, sharing not only your journey, but the work and the sadness that is there. And by your coming this afternoon, making us feel that we are far better off. Perhaps we'll share a thought and make some sort of generous contribution that will allow us. I'd like everybody to thank you so much for
There is a book here for all of you. Please do take one of these. Okay, it tells you all about our work, tells you about the centre and what have you. There are photographs. And my journey is in photographic form here if you really want to see it. I'm not into PowerPoint presentations. I know that at some point I might have to do that. But somehow, I don't want to detract from the very simplicity of what's there. And I think my photographs do that. They show the simplicity of what's there.
Any fellow got any other business to speak to us about? If not, then a reminder for the apologies book. We're all on that next week's menu is, but on the tables. Any variations, alterations, or whatever, Christine is the lady to talk to, and she will sort you out in her usual impeccable manner. That's a right hook. Well, there's always one, isn't there? A request for caviar. Shall I eat it or will you? And the website, of course, all on the website. And the final toast, please, fellows.